My name is Carmen. A lot of people in the community know me as Miss Carmen. I live and work here. I am a science educator in the community, and I run Kitty Science. The familiar faces in the neighborhood have always been here, and that's my favorite part. There's generations that have been here for a while, people who've watched my kids grow up, and that's been kind of nice. So even though everything around us is changing, the heart and soul of the community has stayed pretty much the same all this time. There is no way I can get from home to work without stopping at least 5 times to chit chat, with either neighbors or business owners, because a lot of our business owners are also people who work here and live here. So it's always nice that that's part of my natural routine. Like, I know that as I make my way around the neighborhood, I'm gonna see people I know and say hi and catch up with them. I think a lot of times we may be the glue to what's already here. There's actually quite a lot of nature in our neighborhood, not even including Prospect Park, just walking within the blocks. We have a lot of tree diversity in the area. And with that tree diversity, you now have bird diversity and then invertebrate diversity. So it's really easy to talk about the nature in our community, but then to really explain to the children what they're looking at, what's its significance, and then really paying attention to how we make observations. Suddenly you go outside and it's like, oh my gosh, there's 6 different trees in one block. And that's very accurate for this neighborhood. So things like that, I feel like our role is more to kind of start gluing together the things we already have here so that it makes more sense to the children and their families. I think as an educator, a lot of times we see kids within the one school year, and maybe we'll catch up with them later. But I've really had the unique opportunity to see kids grow over a number of years and then maybe have their younger siblings come in. And in some instances, I've taught the whole family. And in one instance, one of the older students came back as an intern for one summer. So it's been really nice to see kids over a number of several years versus just being limited to that one school year. Because I think it not only shows me how their interest in science has grown and developed, but it shows me what has really stuck with them and what they did with that out in the real world. So it's been nice. I genuinely love this neighborhood. Even before I was teaching here, even before Kitty Science was a reality, I was always engaged in just things going on in the neighborhood, how to make it better. So I guess me teaching and Kitty Science is kind of like part of that, part of giving back to the neighborhood in different ways. So the connection was always there, and this is just more and adding to it. And then because this neighborhood has been so great, and I felt such a connection to it, it really was a priority for me to open up a business here, because I wanted not only for the business to have the location in the community I loved, but I want the people I care about to be able to access it easily without having to hop on the train or the bus or anything. Like, I love here, so let's do this here. I think I would choose unified. And I say this because knowing the community for such a long period of time, I've seen our neighbors have kind of like these silly little arguments among each other, but then when it really comes down to something really serious, don't mess with us. Like, we're gonna really band together and look out for each other. And that I've noticed coming up a lot, particularly after the hurricane. And the neighborhood was kind of shut down. But then we got our lives together to pull off a really special Halloween for the kids. And then when the pandemic happened, and again, that was catastrophic. And despite our squabbles with our neighbors, a lot of us would go food shopping for each other and drop things off. And I'm gonna be over here, do you need anything? And that happened so casually over a very long period of time, because it's still happening now, that I think unified would be the most appropriate word for this neighborhood. I guess I have felt the most supported the times I didn't expect the support. And that recently, just around the whole pandemic and the shutdown and how our community handled all of that, that really has been like the one thing that has blown me away from the community. I think when people heard that we had closed our door, there was a panic that we wouldn't reopen. And interestingly enough, the feedback I got was more along the lines of, was I okay? Was my family okay? Do I need help with the chickens? And I'm kind of like, you guys, we're on lockdown. Like, just chill at home. The chickens are okay. But that's like the concern that I received. And just that whole time of figuring out, how do you stay in business during a pandemic? I was making it up as I went along. But the community was good at giving feedback. So, if it was an idea that was good and they loved it, folks came out in full force. And if they couldn't come out in full force, they would email feedback, and it helped me not function in a void. And then when we did start having some in-person things, just having people excitedly come out and still show support under not ideal circumstances was really unexpected. And I think that really showed just the depth of our community. The community was there for us in ways that were little but ended up being so big that I think that's the reason why we're still here now. And it was not, a close your doors type of closure. And it's definitely this neighborhood. I think if I had a business in a different neighborhood where I didn't work there and there wasn't that connection, I don't think the support, because it was 19 months we were closed. It was a long time. And folks were there. Folks were there the whole way. Even when we were just doing Zoom classes, folks were there. So it was an interesting 19 months, but it was humbling to know that I was not gonna experience that by myself, no matter what the outcome was. Like, people were still checking in and just making sure things were okay. I would like to see us continue to grow, just not necessarily in the way we've been growing. I think a lot of our growth has been development-wise, and I don't think that's what we need. I want to see us grow with what we have. So growth as in keeping our community members here for a long-term period, keeping our families here for a long-term period, so their kids can go to school all through high school without moving. So I hope to see us growing closer together long-term. But I feel we need a community center with increased accessibility. Something more right here than kind of over there, and something that would prioritize our actual community members, some kind of a perk for them. But I do wish we had like one big, huge space where all of the different programs that we have scattered around would have maybe one place to be better represented, so that folks can access it easier. I love gardening and just access to dirt and plants. Not necessarily trees, because I feel like we as people don't have to provide direct care for trees, but plants, and learning how to care for them and kind of seeing them through their life cycle. That's definitely something I nurture a lot here during the warm growing season, because I think sometimes that's a gap. Because if you yourself don't have a green thumb, that may not be something you want to venture to try at home. And then again, you know, the trees are great, but do we really take care of them? Not really. So that's one thing I would say I definitely try to like uphold here, is just that access to getting your hands in the dirt and taking care of plants and growing your own food. That's always so much fun and so fulfilling to be able to do that. So it just kind of helps kids start thinking a bit bigger about, you know, what am I eating and why, you know, and, you know, we can't really grow a pineapple in February, so can we make a choice to maybe eat it when it does naturally grow? And that's a conversation we have with our older students that then kind of starts tiptoeing onto climate change and human impact, but just really thinking about big picture, about, like you said, the whole story about food. We're kind of looking at food at this end part where it's at the store, but let's look at the story from the beginning. You know, it takes a while to get that delicious fruit. I think this neighborhood is really unique, and I'm sure people can say that about their own neighborhood, but there's a few things that I think really should be appreciated about this neighborhood. We have a lot of elders here, and they are such a prize because they have a wealth of knowledge to share that I think can help us not just steer us in a better direction as a community, but help us prevent making the same mistakes in the past. You know, in keeping with the spirit of trying to grow together, there's a few things I think we need to nurture in our community, such as our elders, such as keeping our community clean, because we deserve a clean community. And just really taking a moment to pay attention that even with all the concrete, we have amazing nature around us. There's easily 12 to 15 bird species that make their home in this neighborhood during the warm season. So you can imagine now, you know, what do they eat and what do they eat? So now we're opening up to this huge ecological diversity that's right here, even, you know, in the midst of all the concrete. So definitely a unique neighborhood that should be sheltered and protected in some ways because we have a lot of good things going on here.